Hello and welcome to another edition of For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. Today's show is about the world of finance, banking, and we have a friend returning to the show. His name's Brian Orenstein. He's the CEO of Charter Oak Federal Credit Union. So first of all, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much.
Let's get into a little bit of your background before we talk about the world of banking and finance. Obviously, currently, you're the CEO of Charter Oak Federal Credit Union, but I want to kind of start with a young Brian Orenstein and see how we got to the point we are at right now.
Many years ago,
CEO, yeah.
Young Brian Orenstein, many years ago, I got into banking, 1986, so it's been a while.
Wow.
I worked at some banks up in the Hartford area for a period of time.
Did they even use real money back then, or what?
They did, but let me tell you, computers were kind of new back then, as you could imagine.
Yeah.
We're much more efficient today.
The internet was very different.
Yeah, only 3 people had access, right? But no, started banking in the Hartford area, so almost 30 years ago, and been down now at Charter Oak since 2004.
Now, when you were a kid, a kid always changes his mind about it, 100 times. Does a kid get interested in like finance and banking and things like that?
I guess a little bit in, end of high school, certainly as far as accounting type of things and finance, sure. But as a young child, I'm not
more wanted to be like a baseball player or a rock star.
You got
there.
it, right?
But certain kids will have sort of a tendency to discover that they're good in certain areas, and maybe finance. You discovered you were
certainly
good at
math and down that road, and then that leads to business and accounting, and then into finance.
And you got into college. Was it finance in college?
Yep. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree from the State University of New York at Buffalo, in accounting and a master's in finance. And, so you get interested there. Came out of there, went to a public accounting firm. It was then Ernst & Whinney. Now it's Ernst & Young down in New York City, where I'm from Long Island originally. And moved up to the Hartford area and got into banking here and been there ever since.
And you're also very involved in community affairs, like, things in the public interest too. And it kind of goes along, if you're like a local bank, local credit union, that kind of makes sense. But also just for you personally, you're very involved in a lot of stuff in the community, right?
For a long time, I've been a director on the SBM Charitable Foundation, which came out of Savings Bank of Manchester, which is no longer with us, as many banks have come and gone. More recently, now I'm the co-chair of the United Way campaign this year. I've been affiliated with I'm a director on the United Way board, and I've been affiliated with United Way for many, many years, just through your career and things like that.
Now, United Way is basically a sort of a clearinghouse that kind of offshoots funds to other agencies.
It's really,
and
I'm most familiar with the United Way of Southeastern Connecticut. And they have a great staff there there's allocation committees, and so really they get all the funds in, and like you said, this allocation committee, which is really made up of volunteer community leaders, they go out to all of the different agencies that apply for funding. They go through some rigorous testing of that. They have to make sure that those agencies that have need are going to handle the funds properly and
because there's been some scandal in the past.
Sure. Yeah, that was many years ago, and really, I've worked with the United Way down here in southeastern Connecticut for a while, and very impressed with their staff and the way they handle things.
Did you have to deal, even in the banking industry and also in a lot of the nonprofits, United Way and other organizations, we're just coming out of a recession, and I remember asking you last year about banking during that time too, but as far as all the nonprofits goes, that's got to even be tougher for them to have to deal with things during that time, that crisis.
Yeah, and even as we come out of
would you agree that we're coming out of it now, or?
Yeah, no,
okay.
I think we see some signs of that. We've seen some housing pick up, but there's still tremendous need for food and shelter and heat and oil, and it's really. Boy, when you get involved with some place like the United Way or a lot of the other local charities, you really realize even in towns that you think might be wealthy towns, there's certainly poor sections of wealthy towns that are struggling.
Yeah. Hunger, poverty that doesn't care what kind of social structure is involved. It hits you no matter where you're from or at.
It's pretty amazing, I think.
It's a concern. Tell me about, you said that we're coming out of it. Just from a general perspective, from what you do for a living, and also just as an observer in general, where are we as far as life in general, and not to get too esoteric with you, but maybe from a financial standpoint.
Where are we in the recovery?
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, we're still in the early stages, the third inning or something like that.
They say this is a very, very slow-moving recovery, isn't it?
Yep, slow and steady, which is good. I mean, there were some disappointing numbers. I think first quarter GDP was disappointing. A lot of those are figures lie and liars figure a little bit, so you can't get too hung up on statistics. But we see it at the credit union. We see it within the industry that there is some pickup on the housing side.
That's key, because that's what first tanked to lead us into this recession, was the housing market going, right?
Yep. We hit a bubble.
Yeah.
Everything got overpriced, and then all of a sudden it all crashed. We've seen some slow creep backward. I mean, even in condos, so tough to sell type items. We still see a lot of renting going on out there as well.
Is that in lieu of having the ability to be able to buy?
I
So
think you're
renting
right.
is the way to go.
I think it's just a cheaper entry,
Yeah.
and people want to be mobile. I mean, southeastern Connecticut, although we try to draw a lot of people in here, it's hard to keep the young people coming out of college, either bring them back here because they grew up here, or anyone graduating from the local colleges.
Yeah, from what I understand, even if you see growth in Connecticut as far as jobs, I'm not sure if southeastern Connecticut is in that bracket of like real increase.
Yeah, I'm not so sure there's been real increase
Anywhere,
in many years. There are statistics out there, but I think our net job growth has been almost zero over the last 20 years or something like that. So it's a struggle, and some of those jobs are not of the levels that we're looking to grow jobs.
Yeah. But you're on the front line, so since the housing market tanked and you're in the banking industry, you would see, if we can assume that would be one of the first things that would come back because of what you do, mortgages and things like that, and just finance in general. You're on the front line. You would see it before most people as far as an uptick a little bit.
Yep. We see some uptick on the lending side, which means that consumers are out there trying to purchase, whether it's automobiles or homes. That's where we see it. That's a good sign. People were hunkering down in 08 and 09 and spending their savings at that point, which was conservative, which was probably a good thing for the economy. But today they're starting to reach out and look for borrowing.
Would you be able to succinctly and in layperson's terms describe what happened with the whole Lehman Brothers thing and how it all kind of just became just a big cluster?
Yep. A lot of mortgages were made by a lot of lenders that were today they would be called non-qualified mortgages or deceptive, with escalating rate environment or just they put people in loans that they could not afford to make. Then the bank sold those loans to they securitized those loans, and then people buy the investment that supports that loan. And then the loan defaults and the investment defaults, and then you've got a problem like Lehman Brothers and many others.
And then it just became a cascading sort of a domino effect, and that's another. I guess you could call it a bubble because it burst, right?
Yep, it burst, and a lot of financial institutions went through a lot of struggles during those times.
Now, this was interesting to me anyway, and you tell me if you agree with it from your point of view. There was some argument or sort of condemnation of the government sort of bailing out those institutes, but their argument, the government's argument, was that you would not destroy the economy, but things would be much worse if you did not fix it from that standpoint of simply financially bailing it out, restructuring it so that things were done properly.
Right.
But you can't just let them go out of business, because then you would really have a disaster.
You'd have a panic.
Yes.
You'd have a panic. I mean, remember. No, I was going to ask if you remember, but neither of us remember the 30s.
Young whippersnapper.
1929. I missed that day.
I was a young, strapping man.
But there was no support at that time, and that's what caused it. So, that's how we got to FDIC insurance and all those types of...
right. Your money is insured.
Right. So and that gives confidence to people. And even back, I guess it was 07 or 08 when they raised the limit from 100,000 to 250,000. That gave people even that much more confidence. So, yeah, there's definitely... the bailouts occurred. Who got the money and how they got it and how they repaid it, I'm not touching that one. But
it was government.
Was the bailout necessary? Sure, it was necessary. Should we have not gotten there in the first place? That's really easy to say today.
Yeah, looking to hindsight.
Yeah.
But to allowing those places to simply fail would have been the wrong thing.
Would have been a disaster.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. again, how and who got it, and then what happens to the executives who made those decisions. Do they still get their pay and all that? That's a
Right,
whole
the big
nother-
bonuses and
yeah,
stuff like
we've
that.
all read those stories.
We could do shows on that stuff. Give me the definition, the difference between a credit union and a bank.
Okay. We are a community-based credit union, so we do everything that a bank can do. Our only limitation is that we can only operate in our communities of New London or Windham County. So if you live, work, or worship in any of those counties, you can do business with us. We also have a board of, while a bank can do business with anybody at any time. We also have a board of directors that is volunteer-based. They are not paid in any way. We do not have shareholders, so we don't have any common stock. So we answer only to our depositors, who are our members, and our people who borrow from us, who are our members. So we don't have that outside constituencies that has to return earnings per share to shareholders. We return our excess profits. We need to make a certain level of profit to stay safe and sound. After that, we return our excess profits back to our members through higher deposit rates or lower loan rates.
So that's one of the ways that a person's interest rate will increase by how well that particular
Right.
bank.
We have several programs that reward members who do the bulk of their business with us.
There's obviously some general similarities. Like, for example, when you were mentioning FDIC, your money's insured the same because it's all still federally regulated and
Yep.
stuff like that.
We have something called NCUA insurance.
Okay.
It mirrors FDIC insurance. The difference is just the agency that insures it and that regulates us. We're regulated by the National Credit Union Administration versus the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. So,
I just remember I saw a scene in a movie once where a bank robber came in. He's holding up the place and he goes, "Don't worry, all your money is federally insured." So, yeah, I
up
mean,
to $250 today it is. That's what most of us are under that limit or getting there.
that's right. You know what? This is a good time to take a break, so we will come back. I want you to give out a website for people to go and learn more about all the services that are available.
We're at charteroak.org, very simple. We have a great website out there. It takes you to all of our various services and products, so thank you for the plug.
All right, graphic up on the screen too. Brian Orenstein, the CEO of Charter Oak Federal Credit Union. Very much involved in the community, do a lot of things in the community, and we're going to get to all that next. We'll take a break. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. I'm Sean Murphy. We are chatting about the world of finance, money, banking, all hot, exciting stuff. We're here with Brian Orenstein, the CEO of Charter Oak Federal Credit Union. You know, I'm looking at my notes here, and there's just so much. One of the things that you guys are big into is education and scholarship money. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, first of all, from a financial literacy standpoint,
Easy to say.
kind of, we have branches in 2 local high schools, and that's pretty important to us. We started in 2007.
So there's a branch of the credit union literally in the high schools?
Yep.
Wow.
In 2007, we opened a branch at Fitch High School here down here in Groton, and then I believe in 2010 we opened a branch with a new Killingly High School up in Killingly, Connecticut, and gives the students a chance to actually work in the branch. They run the branch. We do have one person who supervises all of that.
Do they have kids have accounts and
Yep,
everything?
Yep.
Yeah, no kidding.
We encourage that, absolutely. We also teach within the school itself. We give, like part of their business class or whatever, we might come in for a half hour and teach them how to balance a checkbook. Something simple as that. No one balances their checkbook anymore. But,
Yeah.
a lot of kids,
because it's just with a card. That's my check cashing card is all I need. Right?
They got to realize that sooner or later that card runs out of money.
Yeah, that's the
So,
one aspect that they forget about.
So certainly on that side,
Yeah.
tied into that, we give away college scholarships. We've been doing that for many, many years now. At our annual meeting this year, we gave away 7 $2,000 scholarships. We
Now, is it for students that want to get involved in the world of finance or
no,
no? It doesn't have to be anything.
You have to be a member.
Yeah, okay.
Which is very simple. All
Yeah.
you got to do is open an account. So you have to live, work, or worship in New London or Windham County, and we ask for applications. I think we start that process typically in January, and we give them about 2 months. They write an essay. We're typically looking for a very well-rounded individual. We're not necessarily looking for the person with the 4.0. We know they'll get scholarships somewhere else. We're looking for
Right.
someone who's given back to the community. Someone, and boy, these days those high school students are very impressive. We have a difficult time narrowing it down this year to 7.
Really?
Out of probably 85 applications. They have got resume, and they actually develop resumes of all of the community-based things they do.
Oh, see,
Really,
now give me an example of some of the things that the kids are involved with nowadays.
they're all doing, besides your walkathons and
Yep.
your Habitat for Humanities and that type of thing, and obviously your after-school sports and whatever, so many of them are volunteering for food pantries and, that type of item where they just, and I know it's encouraged by the guidance counselors in the high schools because it leads to scholarships, it leads to a well-rounded individual. And imagine if, and it didn't happen when I was back in high school.
Me either, yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty good feeling if you come, we have a lot of people who are also well off. And when that kid who's, brought up in a, sheltered home where, he's getting a lot of things, gets a good education, going to go to college, whatever, it's pretty nice for him to go out and see some of the need that we talked about earlier out in the community and thinking, wow, aren't I fortunate that I'm not food insecure, that I have food every night, that I have heat, I have oil. And obviously a lot of our children take that for granted, and then they see that it's adults and children are suffering like that. I think it really hits home with them, and hopefully it leads to them giving back to the community after they come out of college and have full-time jobs and they want to give back to the community.
Yeah, and that makes the economy churn, and it's
Yep.
better for all involved. I like what you said about not necessarily giving the scholarships to the smart ones that are going to get scholarships anyway. You're actually providing, you're doing them a favor by hitting kids that may not necessarily
Right.
have the ability to, even if they don't have the 4.0 grade point average.
Right, yeah. There are a lot, thankfully there are a lot of organizations that give out scholarships and everyone targets a different level. We are really looking at a kid who's given back to his community, needs to be a good student, of course, and responsible, whatever. But the essays that we look at how well they write, because we think that's lost, a little bit of a lost art these days.
Because
with
you
all the
just type everything now, right?
texting
Yeah.
and all that kind of, all the acronyms and things
I'm
like
give her
that.
my report from my phone.
Yeah, exactly. So, no, so we're looking for that, a little different type of a well-rounded student who wants to go to college and can use a little help.
And that's fantastic. One thing that you mentioned, the only prerequisite is that they be a member, worship, work, or live in the community.
Yep.
One thing that I've noticed from years ago, from my days first starting out with credit unions, although that's a requirement, I find it's a lot easier to become a member of a credit union in general now. There seem to have been more restrictions years ago than there are now. Is that true?
I guess it depends on the credit union. Like I said, we're a community-based credit union, so all you have to do is live, work, worship in those two counties. There are things called SEG-based credit unions, which is specific employer groups. So we used to be Electric Boat Community Credit Union at one time, so you had to work at Electric Boat or be a family member.
Right, so that was very restrictive. Now
Correct.
you release that restriction and you open up a whole world,
Well, not a whole world,
Well,
just
community.
two counties.
Yeah, that's
just
right.
two counties.
Right.
We'd love to have more. So it really depends on the credit union. Today, there are still many credit unions that are just for a specific employer or groups of employers, while there are others that are for geographic areas.
Why do banks and credit unions, why do they end up merging? Obviously, there's financial sound reasons for that, but it's obviously mutually beneficial. What's the reason for it?
Well, on the credit union side, it typically would happen a very small credit union has to face very similar regulations to our size credit union. And you just don't have the manpower. There are credit unions out there with 1-2 people. The CEO is the teller, the janitor, and everything else. So it's really difficult to maintain that. So
Are you emptying trash baskets too in the office? Or?
Sometimes, but no, I'm.
At least you're
I am
honest about
fortunate.
it. Yeah, you're honest. Yeah, it's a successful credit union.
Right. No, we've been pretty fortunate, but so that's one reason for mergers as well. On the bank side, it could be just stock valuations or whatever. But typically, credit unions, sometimes it's a succession planning thing that came up short. The directors want to change over it, so it could be a lot of reasons.
Does the government have a problem with it? Are they very scrupulous of what to keep an eye on it? Is it good for the economy usually?
On the credit union side, they're a little more, there's scrutiny because, again, those fields of memberships kind of have to match up, is what they say. Anytime there's a a troubled financial institution. The government wants the stronger institution to take them
Right.
over.
You want to save it.
Right.
Right.
Theoretically, the stronger institution is going to have stronger management, more resources, can turn around whatever the failures of with that.
That kind of worked out for you a little bit. You got up into the quiet corner of Connecticut with a recent merger.
Yes, we merged last year with Quiet Corner Community Credit Union up in Putnam, and they were really not financially troubled. They had a good balance sheet. They looked forward and saw all the regulations coming, saw interest rates where they were.
And this was during the recession time, or a little bit toward
a little
the end?
after 09 and 2010, 2011, and they see that and they see, okay, where's projected where we're going to be? Boy, we're healthy today, but they saw down the road that was going to be pretty difficult, and they looked for a partner, and we were fortunate enough that they chose us.
You see it. You look at it in other fields too, like L&M Hospital merging with Westerly Hospital, and maybe for completely different reasons. But it's just interesting how if all sides can benefit from it, then it's only a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, pluses and minuses, obviously, to the
Yeah.
community. Sometimes it works out better and sometimes it doesn't. But we were successful with our Putnam merger. We opened a branch up there. We relocated it. We're doing great up in Putnam. We've been able to, we made a donation up in Putnam last year, a $50,000 pledge. They're building a new YMCA regional center up there off of Exit 95, off of 395. And another great organization, the YMCA, they approached us. We're more than happy to do something like that in Putnam.
We were talking about you today, but a lot of the employees that work for you are very involved in the community too, aren't they?
Yeah, and that is our employees. Of course, we encourage it. We certainly don't require it.
Right.
Our employees go above and beyond, whether it's Habitat for Humanity, whether it's the local walkathons, whether it's just manning our booths at the Groton Town Fair or whatever. And really, it's a year-round and a weekend-based thing a lot of times. So they're not getting paid for that, but they put in their time during the week, and they're happy to volunteer on the weekend. I mean, our employees also give very generously to the United Way as well, and a lot of other organizations. So we're pretty fortunate that our employees are so generous.
I drive down Route 85 in Waterford a lot, and I've been doing it for a long time. And there's this really big building to the right of me, or left, depending on which way I'm coming. Slowly but surely, it's progressing, getting bigger. And what it is it's the new headquarters for Charter Oak Federal Credit Union. And I wanted to spend a minute or so on that, too, because it's very impressive, and it's just all coming together, isn't it?
Yes, we are opening on June 16th, one way or another, whether the grass grows or not.
It's going to grow. It's nice weather.
Yes, finally. We've been under construction for maybe 18, 20 months now. That is a building that is bringing our back office, our administrative people, like myself, we're in 4 different locations right now, 2 in Groton, 1 in Niantic, and 1 on Long Hill Road. So those 4 locations come together in one spot. We'll pick up some efficiencies from that, as well as we'll be opening our 14th branch there as well. State-of-the-art facility, 65,000 square feet, built locally. That was very important to us because, as you said before, we're a local organization. We wanted to build the entire building with just New London and Windham County contractors, but the size of the building made us go outside for steel, for instance. We went to Connecticut, up in Berlin.
You still kept it in Connecticut,
Yep,
though, yeah?
Yep, but we wanted to even stay more local to that.
Right.
85% of that building has been built by Windham County or New London County contractors. That was my board of directors demanded that. Otherwise, the building would be a failure. So we made sure we made that. That was important to us. We also have built a community room there that the local nonprofits can use at any time at no charge. 190 seats, and we can split it up a couple different ways, so you can have a small meeting or a large meeting there. We hope everyone will come out to the building and get a good look at it.
Yeah, what's the target date?
June 16th at 11 o'clock.
Brian Orenstein, the CEO of Charter Oak Federal Credit Union. We're going to take one more break and come back. I'm Sean Murphy. This is For the Record. Stay with us. So that is our show for today. Brian, I want to give you the opportunity to mention the website one more time.
We are www.charteroak.org.
Lots of good stuff, lots of great stuff still coming, including the corporate headquarters, which will be opening soon. Thanks for being on the show today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us for another edition of For the Record. You can see this show and many others on our YouTube sites. Till next time, I'm Sean Murphy. Take care.